I've clicked onto the Global Tropical Overview for January the 25th, 2024. As is always the case in these videos, the authentic expression are mine alone, and when making decisions ahead of any tropical cyclones, look to your local weather office, local emergency management, and local tropical cyclone warning center. We've got several systems active today, the same three that we've been talking about for the past several days. We've got now Tropical Cyclone Kirrily. I hope I'm saying that name correctly, but the system is now a tropical cyclone that was tropical low 5U, is now off the coastline of Australia and will make landfall later tonight, local time. And we've also got newly named tropical storm Candice in the Indian Ocean near Mauritius. And we also have tropical cyclone Anggrek still. And I'll be going in the same order that I have for the past couple of days for all of these systems, and I'll leave timestamps so you can skip ahead to Candice or Anggrek if you want to. But we're going to start off with Kirrily. You can see it here off the coastline of Queensland. It's very close now. The center is drawing closer, and we are expecting landfall, like I said, tonight local time. And the system has managed to actually become a tropical cyclone now. We talked about yesterday how the system was lacking central and organized convection over the center, but that has happened since then, and we now have the system named, and it is now a tropical cyclone. And it has strengthened some. It is now a Category 2 on the Australian scale. You can see some of the winds here on the Tascat Pass. This only shows about 45 knot winds on the northeastern side. I saw a different pass. It might have been a bit more closer, or a bit more higher quality, that had showed winds of 50 knots, about 60 miles per hour on there. And you can estimate from that for some undersampling potential that you could have winds of 55 or 60 knots associated with the system. This is a pretty up there. It's upwards of the equivalent of a Category 1 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, just about. So it's gotten its act together, and it is strengthened at a pretty quick rate. And these winds are certainly going to make for a nasty night tonight along the coastline of Australia. We're going to be looking at strong winds coming ashore. You can see the strongest winds are on both the northern and southern side. So areas north and south of the center are each going to get pretty strong winds here. And we're also going to be dealing with storm surge issues, especially when the maximum winds down the coastline from landfall are coming ashore. We also, we'll already probably have some water rises along the coastline. You can see some of the stronger winds south of the storm coming ashore, but the maximized storm surge will be just down the coastline from landfall. And we'll also be looking at the potential for significant rainfall, which could lead to significant flooding in localized areas, as now models have started to catch on to the convection that it has, and I'll show you the HAPS model in just a moment, that has increased its rainfall totals across the region. One more thing for the current status of the storm. You can see at microwave, we had this large curved band structure. This looks to still be pretty much true with the system. It looks like the center is about here, and we've got this sort of curved band structure. So it's good news. We're not getting an inner core or an eye to develop right now. The system is not able to do that yet. And as long as that doesn't happen, we shouldn't see very quick strengthening. But as we've seen in the past day, gradual strengthening is likely here. There is still some shear impacting the system, but it doesn't look to be inhibitive. And I wouldn't be surprised if this system tries to push for Category 3 on the Australian scale before it comes into the coastline. It may just say Category 2, but there is that potential that it does brush the Category 3 threshold before it comes in. But of course, either way, it's going to bring significant impacts. Here's the rainfall forecast from the HAPS model, and I'll show you the legend on the right here. I believe you all can see that. Let me verify that on my screen. You cannot, but okay. The coloring here is these lighter purples are about 50 millimeters. You can see some of the darker purples here. That's about 100 millimeters. And then these really dark purples that you get here into these yellows, that is 150 millimeters of rain or more. And you can see along the track of the storm, you've got a swath of 150 millimeters of rainfall or more. And this rainfall is going to fall over a fairly short period of time. So you could get significant flooding in a short period of time along the coastline and even well inland. You can see just how far inland this extends. That's a very far distance from the coastline, and there is potential for flash flooding here. This is the current forecast from the Bureau of Meteorology, again Category 2, and landfall is forecast tonight. This point here is about 11 o'clock at night, so say 8 to 10 p.m. local time. that could be a good guess for the landfall time frame. And you can see a significant wind field associated with this. And again, from the landfall point down the coast, you could have significant storm surge, especially if you're very close to the core, like an air. You could have some significant water rises along the immediate coastline. But you can also see that the entire cyclone watch area is now a cyclone warning from Serena all the way up to Innisfail, including areas like Cardwell, Palm Island, Townsville, Bowen, and Hamilton Island, and areas even further inland, as the storm will maintain some significant strength as it does move inland. It won't immediately lose all its winds at the coastline, but it will be weakening as it heads through the region. And then after that, weakening into a tropical low, and the system will be moving inland and weakening, and we don't expect any redevelopment potential for the system. It'll likely just die over the continent of Australia. All right, we're now going to move west. We've got Tropical Cyclone Candice is the name. This all new designations today, but you can see it now moving away from Mauritius. We talked about yesterday how it was just sitting north of the island. I believe it made landfall. It was either very close to making landfall or just past north of it. But we had some significant impacts come through with the system. We had a lot of this convection sustaining, and we had the potential for heavy rainfall, and I imagine we got a lot of heavy rainfall across the island and some strong tropical storm force winds. Now, right now, the system is pushing away. You can see the center is right about here with that convective burst here on the satellite view. And you can see still some outer bands coming through La Reunion and Mauritius. But conditions should improve later today as the system continues to push southeast. This is the current forecast from Mateo, France, and you can see there are still some gusty winds associated with the system on the western side, but the strongest are on the eastern side. So you're out of the worst of it, and conditions, again, should improve throughout the day today. The storm will continue to pass south and may become a severe tropical storm before turning into a non-tropical low as it heads down further south and passes into cooler sea surface temperatures. One more thing as well for this, I should mention before I move on to the next system. We do still have a Class 2 warning in place for Mauritius as of the time that I'm recording this video, and I'll leave a link to this page so you can go ahead and get the latest bulletin information from Mauritius Meteorological Services. All right, we're now going to move to Tropical Cyclone Anggrek. The system has had a pretty interesting past day. We talked about yesterday how the system had been fighting some dry air, and we were really mainly looking for, can the system fight off the dry air, and could it potentially wrap in an eye and intensify? And we did see that last night. We actually saw a pretty impressive wrapping of convection around the eye. I did make a post online about it. You could see on the visible satellite imagery some deep convective bursts wrapping around on both sides of the center, making for a pretty significant eye. And that got to intensify pretty significantly, and it's now a Category 3 on the Australian scale. Now, the system seems to have taken in some dry air. You can see the system is not doing very well at all. I guess it's not doing terribly, but it's not doing as good as it was, say, several hours ago. The eye has become much more cloud-filled, and you can see a similar sight to last night. The eastern side looks a little bit more dry compared to the western side. And this is going to be an issue that may plague the system for a little bit longer. One reason is the system has sat here in this general part of the ocean for the past week almost. So what's happened is a lot of these waters are now just really cold. And I can show you that on the HAFS model. This is a sea surface temperature plot, and you can see where the system is centered now. But here where it was sitting, we've just got very cold sea surface temperatures in some portions as low as 20 degrees Celsius or lower. Very low for tropical cyclones. And this is one of the main channels for inflow of the system. So as the winds move over this, they aren't able to pick up all too much moisture because of these cooler waters. And what I think is happening is just the air that's pulling in is not too moist. It's just very dry, and that's what's really impacting the system and pulling that dry air in. You can see some of the impacts of this from this microwave pass. Here's the center, and you can see the eastern and northeastern side is pretty weak and looks like maybe a little bit open there on the eastern side, indicating that the dry air is impacting the system. Now, after this point, once it moves away from this, it will be moving into a favorable environment. The warm waters to the southwest are certainly going to aid intensification, and it's seems pretty likely here that we'll get at least a cyclone tracking through the part of this ocean, but we could get a pretty strong one. This could be, one of the stronger ones of the season. Fortunately, the system's looking to stay out to sea. You can see as we go in time on the HASS model that the waters continue to warm. There's a pretty warm pocket of water in its way, and this will likely help the system regenerate its eye. And once that happens, the environment is forecast to remain fairly favorable. You can see that we have not many big features in play to shear the system apart. We just have a lot of light flow aloft and even some outflow being aided by this upper low to the west of the storm. And this looks like a pretty favorable environment. And it looks like the system will be intensifying, or at least staying a strong storm throughout the rest of the forecast period. You can see that depicted here in the Bureau of Meteorology forecast. Category 3 right now, but you can see getting to Category 4 and staying there for several days. And this could just be one of those nice out-to-sea storms that you track and not have to worry about land impacts. For interest in Rodrigues and Mauritius that may be looking at this maybe with a weary eye, thinking, ooh, could it come our way? Good news is not much has changed since yesterday. We're still looking at a mid-level ridge building to the south of the system. It's there right now, and this is going to keep the system on a southwesterly track over the next few days. Eventually, towards the latter half of the 5-day forecast period, the ridge will begin to break down a little bit on the western side as a trough digs in, and that will likely carry the system further south, harmlessly away out to sea. And you can see if we look at the ensemble members from the GFS, in fact, all of the members are keeping the system well away from the islands. It starts to get a little bit messy towards the end here. You can see that some ensemble members are trying to hint at maybe some more development as we go into this weekend into next week. But if this potential grows, we'll talk about that when we get there. But as of right now, Anggrek is not a threat and not expected to be a threat to any land areas. And this looks like just again, a neat out-to-sea cyclone that may stay strong for several days. All right, that's all that I've got for now. I'll leave you all with the visible loop of Cyclone Kirrily. I keep forgetting that name, so I apologize if I just completely butchered that name. But you can see it there on the visible satellite imagery, and I'll leave that there. And I'll also leave links to the Bureau of Meteorology and other local weather offices in the description, so you can skip ahead to those websites and get the local information that you need for the tropical cyclones that are impacting you. But stay safe in Mauritius, La Reunion, and Australia as these storms push through. And that's it for now. Thanks for watching.